Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic, now full-time energy healer, author, and your resident science meets spirit nerd.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch, teacher of the craft, and owner of not one, not two, but 3 metaphysical businesses.
Together we dig into low-effort witchcraft, spirituality, and the science that backs it all up, all with humor, heart, and a sprinkle of chaos.
So whether you're a curious skeptic or a seasoned witch, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic.
Howdy doody, friends.
Howdy, howdy.
We have a special guest with us here today. We're very excited, and I think you all will be too, because we've been getting lots of questions about this practice. We have Siri Vincent Plouff here, who is a Nordic witch, rune reader, tarot reader, and author of Queering the Runes, Reclaiming Ancestral Wisdom in Rune Magic and Mythology. They are constantly interrogating runes and Nordic practices through a unique lens of sexual and gender identity. They see witchcraft as a way to break out of expectations and live outside of society, and we are so excited to talk to them today. Hi, Siri. Welcome to the pod.
Hello. I'm so glad to be here.
We're so excited to talk about runes. I feel like runes is something that I have zero understanding of, and I really love your approach to it and have just felt really fascinated by like some of the history that you've shared in your book, and just really excited to dive into it through your lens today.
Well, awesome. Yeah, I obviously love talking about runes, and I think that it is a practice that there are a lot of different ways to do it and kind of schools of thought, and I'm very glad that my book is making its way out in the world and people are excited about runes in this particular way. It makes me very happy.
Yeah, we're big fans. And so we always kick off our podcast with the same question, and that is, what is your magic moment? And that could be, a moment from your practice. That could be a little glimmer of hope that you have found through your practice. That could be a moment of gratitude, a manifestation coming true. Do you have a magic moment that you'd like to share?
Ooh, this is such a good question. So I'll start with one that I write about in the book. And I feel like I tell the story in like every podcast that I go on, but it's really fantastic. So I was originally, as a teenager, I was initiated into a Wiccan coven. And when I moved away to college, I was like, I don't know if Wicca is for me. Like, I want to explore some other things. And I certainly wanted to explore outside of the confines of that particular coven. So it was after college, I was like, you know what? Goddess worship. That sounds fantastic. I want to get into goddess worship specifically. And so I did the whole thing. I was reading Starhawk's Spiral Dance at the time. I was reading a few other things and was like, I'm going to set up a ritual to call in whatever goddess wants to work with me. And so I'm in circle, I'm doing this thing, and then this like God shows up with a beard and one eye and a big hat. And I was like, what? And he was like, hi, I'm Odin, basically, essentially is how this conversation went. And I was like, nah, you're not. You're like a spirit calling themselves Odin. And he was like, all right, cool. I'm going to keep sending you ravens to like prove to you that I am actually Odin. So I ended up like, after that, like I would go to an art museum and then I would walk out and there would be this like murder of hundreds of crows.
Oh my God.
Outside.
Holy shit.
And so I live in Minneapolis, and this is a phenomenon called the Minneapolis Murder. There is just like a hundreds strong murder of crows that migrates between different neighborhoods in Minneapolis. And
what?
I'm obsessed with this. I'm so sorry. We have to scrap the rest of the episode
and just talk about this.
This is now a Minneapolis Murder Crow podcast.
Oh my it's God. So good. So yeah, I'm kind of telling the story a little flippantly, but basically like Odin kept sending the Minneapolis Murder like near me. Or like I kept being in places where the Minneapolis Murder was like roosting until finally I was like, ugh, okay, so you say you're Odin and you're sending all of these crows at me. I guess I'll start working with you, because I was very much like, I wanted to work with a goddess, god damn it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I did not ask for this. And that's kind of how my whole journey with heathenry and Nordic runes sort of began, right? Was just being like, no, bitch, like, you're mine. We're doing this. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever.
I'm obsessed with that. Also, I'm really upset. I went to Minneapolis in October and I did not see the murder. Murder of crows.
Right, yeah, yeah. I don't know. They've been somewhere else. Minneapolis also has roving bands of turkeys.
What? Why are birds attracted to Minneapolis?
Right?
I don't know.
Has anyone studied this?
I don't know. It's really funny though. So we have like the Northeast Minneapolis like turkeys. We have the powderhorn turkeys. We have the Edina turkeys. Edina's a suburb.
Okay. I thought these were types of turkeys.
I
was like,
also
you
was
know
like,
a lot
wow.
about turkeys.
We were having the exact same mental moment because I was like, wow, turkey expert. Okay.
No, it's chill. Yeah, I feel like I kind of am a turkey expert just because like I'm obsessed with them. Like
I love it.
just like observing them, not like reading about them necessarily. But like,
Not yet.
I moved into an apartment one time, and like my first morning in that apartment, I woke up and looked out my window, and like my neighbor's roof was just like had turkeys all over it.
Oh my God.
And like they walk so often that you forget that they fly.
Yeah. 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 Then they're so like, they're such a wonky shape that I forget that they're
Right.
capable of flight. Like, I think they're like penguins.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So Minneapolis is full of avian magic, I suppose you could say.
Wow.
I love
Okay,
that.
I'm gonna have to go back and look for them.
Right?
Yeah.
I am remembering there's a neighborhood that my best friend grew up in that had a, I don't know what the word is, a murder of peacocks. And it would be the same thing where they would be on people's roofs and they would be in the backyard and be like, oh, I can't let the dogs out because the peacocks are in the backyard. Like, I got it, you know, and they're like shooing these peacocks, like, go, please. My dog has to pee.
That's incredible. And I can totally see that. I don't know where your friend grew up, but I studied abroad in India in college, and peacocks are like that. The first time I saw a peacock just like in a tree, I was like, what are you doing, sir?
Right? Like, it doesn't look correct. I wish I could say it was somewhere cool, but it's small town Florida. We had all these peacocks.
That's kind of funnier.
Right?
Because they're probably not supposed to be there.
Oh, almost certainly not. But they spark joy, and that's, you know,
Yeah.
at least something to say about it. But you kind of segued us into my first question for you, which that experience that you had with Odin, which is so fucking cool. But what has your journey with the runes been like from there?
Yeah, so from there, I really I started reading the mythology, and I was and am continued to be very committed to working against cultural appropriation. So it really felt like, okay, like I have like literal, like my mom's side of the family is like extremely Norwegian, like not, I wouldn't say like terribly recent immigrants, but like, you know, very culturally Norwegian, I should say. Like they very much kept that. They didn't assimilate. And so that is very like dear to my heart. So I was like, okay, like, you know, I'm going to stop using white sage. I'm going to stop using these things from outside of my own ancestry and really dive into this. And the runes felt like a really good way of entering into that, because at the time that I was doing this, I wasn't sure what I wanted my magical practice to look like per se. But I did have a pretty strong tarot practice actually. And so it just felt right to kind of start studying the runes in a divinatory way. And then I actually ended up getting the opportunity to live in Norway for a summer,
Oh, wow.
Cool.
which was very cool. And so, of course, I brought my runes with me. And I got to hike in the Norwegian National Park, which is Jotunheim. It's a Norwegian national park. And that is like literally one of the 9 realms. Like the name Jotunheim comes from like the land of the giants. So of course I brought my runes with me, and I like cast them on top of the mountain, and that was very cool, and like all of this stuff. And so it really felt like, oh, runes are really like calling to me. This feels really right. This feels really good. So I learn really well through writing. I think it's a very typical writer type thing. If you know anything about Odin as well, like, of course, Odin was the first god to come to me because he's very much like mind, writing, communication, storytelling, like all of those things are very much in Odin's realm. So I ended up actually being in community with many different tarot readers because I was a professional tarot reader at the time. So I was in community with a bunch of tarot readers, and I don't know if you ever read the blog Little Red Tarot.
Mm-mm.
No, I don't think so.
It's based out of the UK, and it was kind of a home for like queer, lefty, radical tarot readers. And there was a community blogging aspect for a time. So my co-author on my first book, Cassandra Snow, who wrote Queering the Tarot, actually, that book started as a column on Little Red Tarot.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
I love that book
Yeah.
too.
It's so good. They are an incredible, just visionary in tarot. I love working with them so much. So I pitched Beth, the host of Little Red Tarot, a column on runes, and I called it the Heathen Sturdy. And it was the idea was that I would do, you know, a blog once or twice a month on a specific rune, and I would kind of go through the entire Futhark.
Cool.
And yeah, so that really kind of helped me develop my practice. It got me reading a lot of different books because, of course, to write nonfiction, like you have to have sources, you have to read a lot, right?
Yep.
And then when Beth decided to close the community aspect of her blog, and just so it just became Beth's blog for a few years. So after that, I basically made the Heathen's Journey column into the Heathen's Journey podcast. And from there, the book Queering the Runes grew. Because it was just like, oh, like I have so much information now. I've been doing this for so long. So that was probably like the first pitch to Beth was in 2017, I want to say, when all of this really popped off and started for me. Oh, and I should say too, also, actually, the coven that I was in as a teen, they had a very Nordic bent. So, you know, they're like god and goddess in the Wiccan coven were Odin and Freya. And they also, you know, the high priest and high priestess would read runes for people. And so I had a few rune readings before I started really studying them myself. And I made my own set actually while I was with them.
Oh, wow.
Wait, tell us about that. How did you make
Yeah.
what did you make it out of?
So there was like I can't remember what kind of wood it was. He referred to it as a grapevine, but it was like thicker than most grapevines that I've seen and more wooden.
Cool.
So what you do is you take the branch and you cut it into even discs, and I just wood burned the runes onto it.
Oh, wow.
That's so sick.
Yeah, yeah. And then a lot of people do bless them with a bodily fluid. You can get like a lancet and like prick your finger and bless them with blood. That's very traditional. I can't remember if I blessed mine with blood or if I blessed it with spit. Either way, I know that I blessed them. And this was all under the supervision of my high priest at the time.
Wow.
Cool.
So it was like a very like heathen flavored Wiccan coven that I was
Yeah.
I love
that I
that.
started in. Yeah.
So I know that this is something that you touch on a little bit in the book that I am really, really interested in, because I know we have these like very strong ideas of ancient Norse culture through Hollywood and, you know, how it's portrayed on TV and in movies and things like that. What do we have wrong about the Norse?
Well, first of all, I think that like a lot of people focus on the violence of the Viking Age / the Iron Age. And there's definitely a lot of violence there. I think that I get frustrated when people glorify that era instead of interrogate it as not exactly like a colonial force, but like this global like literally raging and pillaging and sacking cities. You know what I mean? Like that, like that's not a good thing to do. Like it's not respectful of your global neighbors. People were very afraid of the Vikings, rightfully so. I actually kind of like I back when Twitter was a thing, I got into a little cranky spat with somebody on Twitter because it was around the time that The Northman came out, which is a film that follows one of the Icelandic sagas that inspired Hamlet. And it's really brutal. And I remember I went and I like basically had like a PTSD like meltdown for like the entirety of the movie. Like it just does not let up on the brutality of it. And I will say that like the point of the movie was that violence is bad and wrong. Got it. I
didn't need 90 minutes of gore to get that.
It was like 3 hours long. It was like,
oh
yeah,
my
it was like,
God.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, what is for this entire time. So I kind of got into a little thing where I was like, man, like I'm sick of people, you know, like they never make, you know, movies about like farmers during the Viking Age or like the noblemen or you know, like you could do like a Game of Thrones type like movie or series even about, you know, like the royal families and all of that, and it would be really interesting, but it's always focused on the Vikings. And somebody commented and was like, well, the Northman is like all based on a farm. And I was like, first of all, fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
I do know what I'm talking about, I promise. Second of all, like they very much were Vikings because they were settling in Iceland and staking their claim in Iceland. So anyway, whatever. So that is a frustration of mine, a long-standing frustration of mine, is that people don't, you know, look at Nordic culture outside of this very specific thing that a very specific group of people did. You know?
Yeah.
Another kind of pet peeve of mine is, yeah, I guess it's just kind of like stuck in, like, so much of Hollywood is just stuck in that era. A big pet peeve of mine is Viking dreads. Like when people like portray Vikings as having these like crazy blonde dreads and like, you know, like the war paint and stuff. And I'm like, that is a very modern conception of what these people looked like. We actually have archaeological and like storytelling evidence. That's, I don't think that's how you refer to it, but like written
We knew what you meant. We were like, yeah.
I trust you.
Documentation of some kind, right? That like when the Vikings came into Scotland and were raiding in Scotland, like a lot of the women were said to be really interested in them because they bathed and had a very
low bar.
Right, yeah, very low bar. Oh yeah, sure, this man is incredibly violent and awful, but he bathes and combs his hair.
And so if you're choosing between two violent, horrible men, I think I'd choose the one that bathed.
I think I'd choose the women.
Right,
yeah. Right.
Yes, let's be real. But yeah, so they had like, you know, they would like have intricate braiding and they would like comb their hair very specifically, and kind of like people would refer to them almost as like vain, right? Because they combed their hair so much. That doesn't give dreads to me.
Yeah.
You know? Who knows? There may be people who did have matted hair, because let's be real, on white people, it's matted.
It's a mat. Yeah.
So that is a big, in terms of just aesthetics, that is a very big annoyance to me. And I've even had arguments with people about this, who were like defending their Viking dreads and defending their like white people dreads is like, well, my ancestors are Vikings and they had dreads. And I'm like, girl, oh my God.
My thought is always like, if you have to defend a hairstyle because it's upset such a large group of people, then like maybe we do a different hairstyle. Like maybe that's the maybe that's the easier path.
Yeah, it's interesting. That was very Minnesotan of me. That's interesting. Um, but some things that I do think that are really adapted well. People have adapted Nordic fairy tales very beautifully. So
Mm.
Frozen
Hmm.
comes to mind, of course, and I even love like some of the detailing on like Anna's dress is, you know, like the folk craft dresses and stuff like that. That is very, very beautifully done. Yeah, I would say Hollywood, like, get into Nordic culture in different eras, you know? Like, there's a lot to draw from, like there is with any culture. So we don't always have to be in the Viking era. We can be in, you know, like the height of the fairy tale era, which is, you know, 1800s. We can be in, you know, the deep history, like pre-Viking Iron Age, like pre-Iron Age stuff. We can be talking about, you know, even more modern Scandinavian culture is really interesting. So yeah, like there are a lot of different things. Like we don't have to stay in the Viking era.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so interesting because like as you talk, it's so ingrained in me like that Viking era that I didn't even realize like Anna and Elsa are like another example of like Nordic fairy tales and things like that where I'm like, oh yeah, as you say it, that makes perfect sense. Like it's so weird that it's like so ingrained that when I think of Nordic culture, I think of Vikings. And
Yeah.
it is
Right.
weird that it's like, oh, that's just one, you know, like sliver of time that we're now pasting over all aspects of the culture. Like, I think that's what drew me to your work is sort of having those moments of like, oh, yeah, why do I always think this is this or whatever? And I'm curious when like, what drew me to your book is the title because I read Queering the Tarot, and when I saw Queering the Runes, I was like, "That's how I want to learn about runes, right there, that one." Can you describe for our listeners who maybe haven't read the book or haven't heard of the book, what does Queering the Runes mean to you, and are there particular aspects of the practice of runes that you feel like lend itself to be particularly queer?
Yeah. So basically, like once you dive beyond the weird Hollywood obsession with Viking bros, um,
Which is like so straight to me, by the way. Like that's what I love about this book and the fact that it exists in the world and that I have it as a resource to point people to is that when you think about the runes, it is so like from that Hollywood idea
Yeah.
of it is it's the straightest thing I can think of. And I'm like, oh, actually now I'm going to show you how it's really, really not.
yes, exactly. So to queer something, so we often think about queer as like an adjective. Like I would describe myself as queer. Like I am gender queer, I am gender fluid, you know, like all of these things. I am queer in that I am, you know, in a relationship with another queer person. You know, involved in queer culture. Like this is all using it as an adjective, but to use queer as a verb. So to queer something means to see it through that lens, like see it through the culturally queer kind of lens, but also to turn it on its head a little bit. And I have the book right here because I wasn't sure. Queer as a verb means to change something so that it does not relate only to one gender, either male or female, or so that it no longer fits traditional ideas about gender or sexuality. So this is interesting because I also asked the question in that chapter while I'm kind of defining like what does it mean to queer something? Like what is traditional? You
Mm.
know, we assume that traditional means, you know, the gender binary. We assume that traditional means heterosexuality. We assume that traditional means kind of like the conservative
Hmm.
viewpoint that we have in society today. Whereas it wasn't always like this. Like we didn't always have such a firm gender binary. So I talk about it in the book, and I think there might be another book in me just about different kinds of queer figures throughout Nordic history.
Ooh. I want that book
that.
right now.
Yeah.
Put it in my Kindle right now.
Yeah. So there's like, gender was not what was between your legs. It was how you performed. It was the role that you played. So there are words as, so the Viking era, again, I'm going to kind of focus on the Viking era because it is also the era of Christianization. Scandinavia was the last place in Europe to be Christianized. And so the first like 100 years or so of the Viking era is pagan. And then the violent, bloody conversion to Christianity began within the Viking era. And so you have these words in Old Norse from that era that are ergi is one of them, or ardger. It's an adjective that basically means unmanly, but it is also a slur for a man who bottomed during gay sex. And so, first of all, this tells us one thing, right? That you kind of can't have a slur unless people are doing it. So there's that. But it also, because it appears around this time, that is the new social order trying to control this older social order. Seether is also a word that we talk about in this way in Old Norse studies. So seether is a form of Norse trance magic, and it was considered to be a feminine form of magic. So, but it was not that you had to be a woman sex. Like you didn't have to be like AFAB essentially to perform Seether, but performing Seether made you womanly.
Okay.
So one of the things I talk about in the book is the fact that Odin performs Seether and is in the myths after he performs Seether, he's referred to as ergi. So this performance makes him unmanly. And that kind of calls into question Odin's gender identity and performance, right? I still use he, him pronouns for Odin because it is how I interact with him, right? As somebody who works with him as a god. But then we also have the problem of Loki. And the problem of Loki could probably be an entire book as well, right?
I was going to say, I think a lot of sentences start with the problem of Loki.
Yeah. So Loki in the mythology and is like a shapeshifter, is a trickster, and also changes their gender very often. So one of the famous stories where Loki changes their gender is the birth of Sleipnir, which is Odin's horse, that the eight-legged steed that can like carry him through the different worlds. Loki births Sleipnir and mothers Sleipnir essentially by transforming themselves into a mare and distracting a stallion for a good 9 months.
Wow.
And Loki just like returns with a baby horse essentially. And Loki is often a comic relief kind of character. Another of my favorite stories of this is when Thor has to go and rescue his hammer from an ogre who has stolen it. Loki gave the hammer to the ogre. So the ogre is demanding Freya's hand in marriage. She says, hell no, that's never happening. The gods are like, okay, well, we already promised Freya's hand in marriage, so we have to figure this out. Thor, I imagine this very comically as like everybody turning to Loki, who is the shapeshifter who can, very accurately mimic a woman. But Thor raises his hand and is like, I will go. I will do it. So we have Thor in drag. And Loki is like, okay, I'll go babysit Thor while he's in drag because nobody's going to buy this because Thor is so masculine. So we have these stories of Loki kind of like being a gender traitor or using gender in these ways that for comic relief, for pushing the story forward, for all of these things. And I want to stress that these stories were written down post-Christianization in Iceland. And so the fact that they were written down when they were, like, you couldn't take the queerness all the way out of them or they wouldn't make sense, right? So, like, even in a very patriarchal society, even in a society that was trying to overcorrect in some ways from like a previous idea of gender, we see this. And so it's just very interesting. So, like, applying this to the runes, it's really easy actually to see them as a, see them beyond the binary, see them outside of cis heteronormative designs. And so in the book, I actually do go through every single rune of the Elder Futhark. And I talk about, what this rune means traditionally, how this rune could kind of apply to queer culture, and try to help readers learn runes in a safe space that is, not going to blindside them with heteronormativity. And I'm also very real in the book about the history of white supremacy and racism, specifically in like Nordic heathen spaces and stuff. So it's also, a safe place for people who are BIPOC, people of color, to learn runes as well.
That's something that comes up a lot. So I own a metaphysical store that has a large book selection, and we carry as many books on the runes that I can find that aren't written by white supremacists, So we're doing our best. But it's a question that comes up a lot for people who have Norse ancestry or people who don't, who are interested in learning. How do we ethically use runes in our practice? How can we ethically interact with the runes?
I kind of like to think of the runes as spirits, almost.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's more like you're getting to know the runes themselves, and I think that they really speak for themselves. I feel like I've been a professional witch long enough to have seen people eschew and be really awful about personal gnosis. And I feel like the pendulum is swinging back a little bit further now to people sharing their personal gnosis, but being like upfront that that's what they're doing. Because really, like, we're all making it up at some point, right? Like, this is all, that's what society is. We're making things up. And yeah, so I think that that is one thing. Kind of, there are a lot of community resources as well within Heathenry that, I know that somebody who's completely new to it won't necessarily know about. There are lists of authors that are kind of like on the beware, don't, read or support this author, or who have maybe taken some actions that are questionable, but are, like read at your own risk kind of thing. I actually, while I was writing this book for a while, I was trying to make sure that I wasn't bringing anything from white supremacists into the book. So in order to do that, I felt like, oh, fuck, I have to read something by them now. And not that I have to read white supremacists the Rune way, like to get that, but like more, I wanted to read like the stealthier books written by white supremacists so that I could see like, oh, like, these other authors are maybe picking up on these ideas that stem from this kind of poisoned pool, right? Another thing to note too is that there are actually different alphabets. So there are different futharks of runes. So the actual literal Nazis created a runic alphabet.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, and that is like the biggest tell, right? If somebody is like, I use the Armanen runes, that's like, I don't want to be in the same room as you. Okay, bye.
Gotta go. My mom called. She's coming to pick me up.
That's a good like. They should have that as a mandatory question on like witchy dating profiles. Like, like that's like the red flag tester.
Right. Yeah. So if you ever, are picking up a book that's like talking about Armanen runes and not in a critical way, then you know that you've stumbled into a bad place.
Yeah.
And there are other things that are kind of red flags as well. So one of them is the concept of metagenetics. And this is basically the concept that, like, you know, in runic circles, people will use this concept to say that, like, oh, this is a closed practice. It is within the blood, like literally the blood of like Nordic peoples. So anytime somebody is like, this lives in the blood, I'm like, okay, bye. Like, no, that's not how this works. So anytime somebody tries to say that runes are a closed practice, run. Because runes are not a closed practice. They are a culturally specific practice, but they are not closed. And there is a big difference there. So those are kind of my like, that's like my quick 5-minute, here's how to kind of protect yourself in these spaces.
I love that.
I will always say, like, stick to your intuition. Like, if you go to a local heathen meetup and the vibes are fucking off, like, leave.
Yeah.
You don't have to be there.
Yeah.
Like, we're witches. We're developing our intuition. You know, whether you've used runes to do that or other tools, or you're just getting started with runes, like, you do have intuition. Every single human being has intuition. So if a red flag is coming up in your mind and you feel like you need to leave the situation, you can just leave the situation. You don't have to try to make community with these people, because there are plenty of us who are loudly anti-fascist, loudly anti-white supremacist online that you can connect with.
I love that as like a checklist. I'm like, I want to make one of those checklists for every practice ever. But I also love, like, specifically how you said it's not a closed practice, it's a culturally specific practice. Because I hear that a lot as someone who teaches Reiki. And like, I think that whenever I get asked that, I always talk about it's not a closed practice, but there is like such an important depth to the practice and understanding that cultural aspect to it and the history, because like you said, you know, it can help you suss out, you know, who is teaching from sort of the lens that you want to learn through versus someone who's just like, oh, I picked up this harmonic rune thing and I like it, you know? And then you're just
right.
like,
Yeah. I think that more people need to like adapt that kind of language, actually. Because I'm also
I'll
thinking
be
about
borrowing
like,
it.
yeah. Oh, for sure. Please do. Like, steal it. I don't care. It's not even theft. I'm giving it to you. Like Polish folk magic, for example, that's culturally specific. It's not necessarily closed.
Yeah.
And I think that also preserves the importance of actual closed practices.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like that distinction. I'll be using that.
Yeah.
So, for someone who's interested in working with the runes but maybe is feeling overwhelmed, you know, where do you recommend getting started?
So, buy my book.
I was going to say, first step, they have your book.
The link
Yeah.
is in the show notes.
I know a great little shop you can get it.
Yes, please buy my book from your local witches. I love that. Keep small businesses going, please. I would say this is actually very similar for me with getting to know tarot. Like, draw a rune regularly and just sort of sit with it. If you have a meditation practice, maybe draw a rune before your meditation practice and just sort of see what comes up in meditation. I really like to think of it as this is like it's a relational practice at its heart. You are getting to know these spirits. And I don't say it explicitly in Queering the Runes, that's how I see the runes, right? But Sarenth Odinson, who is a heathen blogger, and I believe, yeah, TikToker, we follow each other, reviewed the book and basically said, like, so I talk about the runes as vetir, which that's like an Old Norse word for like spirit, nature spirits. And he basically said, yeah, like, I see the runes as vetir. And Siri didn't come out and say that, but that's how it seems like they're talking about this. And I am. Like, that is how I'm kind of talking about them. I'm talking about them as spirits that you can get to know. I'm talking about them as these sort of spirits. So it is a relational practice. Also, I would recommend studying the cultural myths. So read the Wikipedia pages for the different myths if that feels, if you're like, I cannot do medieval literature right now, Siri, I'm so sorry. The world is burning down. Like, I cannot read medieval texts.
Yeah. Relatable.
Like, mood,
Very
I get
relatable.
that. But like, there are other ways of identifying and like learning more about the myths than like just reading the source text. And maybe later you will read the source text, and that's totally okay too. So begin to kind of immerse yourself in the culture. And there are a ton of great podcasts out there too for this. I really love the Nordic mythology podcast. That's probably like the most obvious one, that people, if they just Google like Nordic podcast, like they'll find that one. So yeah, just like immerse yourself as much as possible in the culture. Sit with the runes in meditation, read through the book, and then begin to find more books, and read through more books. Another book that I really love for this relational practice actually is called Wild Soul Runes by Laura Valeda Vesta. She wrote the introduction or the foreword for Queering the Runes, and her book on runes is fantastic because it basically is each rune has like a list of these really deep journal prompts.
Ooh.
So, the two books go together really nicely because like her journal prompt game is like incredible. I actually kind of prefer her journal prompts to my journal prompts, I'm not gonna lie. So definitely like grab her book as well, because that is also a way of sort of thinking your way through these themes, like understanding the runes. Now she works with the Anglo-Saxon Futhark, which is longer than the Elder Futhark. It has 28 runes, whereas the Elder Futhark, the one that I write about in my book, is 24. So you can, choose to go further into the Anglo-Saxon Futhark or with her book, or you can just stick to the Elder Futhark. And yeah, that's kind of my biggest. I always advise students to don't be afraid to do readings for yourself. Don't be afraid once you are a little bit more off book to do practice readings for other people, because I think that that's the only way that you can really learn them is just by doing it. And it's okay if you mess up, and it's okay if you don't know what you're doing, because you're a beginner, and beginner energy can be really hard for people, but just let yourself be a beginner.
I love
It's so
that.
funny. I really appreciate the comparison to tarot. That's kind of my bread and butter, and the advice that I always give to people when they want to learn is just pull a card every day, and I never thought to apply that same logic to anything else.
Yeah. Same. I was like, oh. When you said it, I was like, duh.
Obviously that's available to me. But I think because I see it as like as a language, which tarot is as well, of course, but
they feel very different energetically.
Yeah.
Like, as somebody who reads both, like, they
yes.
do feel very different energetically. So I understand that impulse of being like, oh, runes are like something else.
I have to put them into a sentence together. I couldn't possibly just look at one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can draw more than one rune every day too, or, like every week. I like to say regular-ish. Because I've had a lot of students of both runes and tarot, etc., over the years say like, I do not have the energy to do a daily reading. I just don't.
Fair.
And so I'm like, okay, if you can do a reading 3 times a week for yourself, that's great. If you can do a reading weekly for yourself with multiple runes, that's also great. Like, play with what is going to work for your energy levels. And I think that's particularly important. So I have a chronic illness and have a lot of students who are either neurodivergent or, have serious mental health like issues, or like I do. Like, no shade. Like, obviously, like I also have mental illness.
Same.
Or
You're among friends here.
Yeah.
The neurodivergent, mentally ill witches all gather here at Demystify Magic. So.
Yep.
Right, yeah. In my Discord server, I have a channel that's called Low Spoon Still a Witch.
Love that.
Oh, I love that.
Which is, just like people sharing like, oh, like I was in a horrible amount of pain today, but I was still able to do like X practice or whatever.
Yeah. We have a whole series called Low Effort Magic, and that's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. This is why I could never be a true ceremonial magician as much as I love the drama.
Right. It's like I could admire it from afar and be enamored with it and understand that that is not in this life, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely something.
Yeah. For kind of as a wrap up, I'm really curious. How do runes in your practice support more like mundane aspects of your life? Like I'm a big fan of like mundane magic, you know, like using magic to vacuum my house and things like that. How do you use the runes for those more like day-to-day things, especially when you're feeling those like low spoons, low energy, low motivation?
Well, one of the things that I love about runes is that you can put them in your pocket. Like you can just take them with you. Or, they're so easy to just like draw, like you can just like draw in your planner, either the rune that you pulled for the day or a runic energy that you want to embody. So one that has been coming up for me a lot lately has been Kaunas, which is a rune of like fire and creativity and all of this stuff. And I kind of have been seeing it as a bit of like a, fight back with love in these times kind of energy. I've been doing a lot of anti-ice stuff. So I won't say more than that because it's a podcast.
This is fuck ice. You can
say
it.
Fuck ice.
Oh no. Yeah, fuck ice. I'm just not going to say anything that I'm doing specifically.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. But I see Kaunas then as like a good rune to call on both of the fire runes. So Kaunas and Nauthiz, which is Nauthiz is the rune for like need. And that one also is like, no, we need to fucking melt ice. Like we need to do this. So I've been kind of working with those runes. And so like you can carry them in your pocket. You can write them in your notebooks. You can even just like say their names and like kind of invoke that energy. Another thing that I've done, and this is very effective before job interviews actually, is making the runic shapes with your body.
Ooh.
So sort of like, so like sort of like power poses, but runes.
I love this.
Wait.
Yeah, so some people have called it runic yoga. There have been some white supremacists who have called it runic yoga, but then also like my mentor calls it sometimes runic yoga, and she is very much fuck ice, fuck fascism. So like, call it what you will, but making the poses with your body, like making the shapes of the runes, you can that's one thing that I love about them so much, that it's really, once you know them, it's kind of easy to call in their energy. Like it's very low effort. Like I can, at work, if I'm having a really rough day, I can go to the bathroom and just like chant under my breath, like the name of a rune to give me strength. Or the name of a rune to like bring ease to my life or something like that, right? Another thing, and this is maybe like where a little bit of my chaos magic sort of comes in handy, is that they're very easy if you do any kind of graphic design work. You can do this in Canva. Like put an image of a rune or a sigil behind the image of whatever you're sharing to give it a boost.
Love that.
Do that all the time. All the time.
Yeah, I'll also do that with like anti-evil eye sigils and stuff, like protection sigils to like protect myself, but also keep myself visible. So there's a lot of ways that you can use them. And they also, I love runes because yes, they are a language, but also they are so easy because they're just letters. They are so easy to just write, in a way that like, I can't just easily draw the chariot card, for example.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I could maybe put the chariot card in my planner and like use it as a bookmark and carry it with me, but I can't like just easily draw it when I need it, or something like that. I have been carving runes into candles since I started doing candle magic, right? Like it's just like how I am in the world. So there are so many ways to use them that is easy, low energy.
I love it.
I really love the body position thing because immediately what comes to my mind is the Algi's rune. And myself just going with my arms up.
Yes!
That's one that we use a lot at work. having like a witchcraft space in the South, we do a lot of protection magic.
Girl, yeah.
Whew. It is feels like a second full-time job, but a good friend of mine who works with me, he is like very immersed in the runes, and so it's Algi's rune all over everything, and I'd love the idea of us just standing outside with our arms up.
Yes.
Protecting our space.
Yes.
Going, fuck you all. Come get me.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. I do that also. So for me, Algi's is a rune that I associate with like connection with nature, and natural forces. So for me, it's also kind of like a good rune to use to sort of summon protective spirits to you.
Ooh, I love that.
I have a lot of like interpretations of the runes that I haven't necessarily seen elsewhere, but that they are, that is like how I use them, and they are very effective that way. So like I said, I'm a big fan of personal gnosis, and it is a relational practice. So as you get to know runes, there will be like associations that come up that are not common for you.
Yeah. It's cool to hear you say that about nature as well, because it's specifically something that we use a lot for hurricane protection magic as well.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God, I love that.
So that's cool. Yeah, it and very, very effective. There was a really, really terrible hurricane that came through not last year, but the year before. And I have photos of it where there's literally like 4 feet of space, like totally clear space, and then debris, massive branches, like as if a fucking force field had erupted itself around my store. It was bonkers.
That is like when people are like, Siri, do you really believe in magic? You know, when I was a younger witch, I used to say like, oh, well, you know, like it's a mindset, and like, does it work? Yes. Does it have to be real to work? No. But like that is fucking real.
Right? It was so fucking cool. And so immediately you said nature, and I was like, yes.
Yes. Yes. Nature protection.
Double worked. Nature protection, nature spirits. So fucking cool. Siri, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today about the runes. I'm so excited to deepen this relationship that I have with them through your work. How can our listeners find you to hear more of your wonderfulness?
Yeah, so listen to the Heathen's Journey podcast. That's like, I have a lot of back episodes of that. I have not uploaded a new episode in a while, but I think I've got like 50 or so episodes there. So like there's a lot of content. I am also, Cassandra Snow, again, author of Queering the Tarot, and co-author with me of Lessons from the Empress, which is a tarot workbook for self-care and creative growth. That is a mouthful of a title. Cassandra Snow is an amazing, incredible person, and we have a podcast together called Chaos and Cunning that is currently releasing episodes. So that is a great way. You can also sign up for my Patreon, which is just patreon.com/Siri Vincent Plouff. I am as of recording, I'm sort of rethinking, changing how I'm utilizing the Patreon, but I plan on releasing monthly, like, meditations. I'm planning on, and meditations in terms of, like, journey work and, like, kind of helping you to maybe perform some magic in your mind while you are meditating. Cool. Stuff like that. Like I've been developing a new kind of style of meditation for myself. So I'm excited to share that with people on the Patreon. And I also do like runic altars on Patreon as well, and just other stuff. You can sign up for my newsletter, which is where you'll primarily just get like updates on stuff. If you are very interested, have read the book, are like, I need more, I want more, you can register for my Queering the Runes course. So this is essentially it's a 6-month course. I have pre-recorded lectures for all of the runes and other kind of framing, like Nordic cultural stuff on there. I talk about runic magic. I talk about runic divination on there. And I also, every time I run the class, I have individual lectures. So I actually, this session, am doing a lecture on Nordic pop culture, like the Nordic pop culture thing.
Fun.
And last fall, when I was doing it, I did a very popular session on death runes, which I will be doing again. And once you have registered for the class, you are invited to all lectures moving forward into the future.
Cool.
So because runic learning, and I think learning in general, is an iterative process, meaning that you have to return to it over and over and over again. So I want to honor the students who have signed up for previous versions of the 6-month course, and continue to invite them back, because they also will share like incredible tidbits of information about their own, understanding of the roots and everything. So that opens every solstice. So it opens at the summer solstice and it opens at the winter solstice. So I believe that this is being released in between. So the next time it will be available for registration is in June.
That is so fucking cool. And immediately I'm like, where do I sign?
Yes, I will send you the link.
There. Please. That is so cool. I want to share that with everybody I know. Siri, thank you so much again. This has been such a cool conversation. And we will have all the links to all of the things, everywhere to follow you, sign up for all the things, get all the information in the show notes. And I think we did it.
We did it.
Yay.
Yay.
All right. Thank you so much again. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. All our links, from spells to ceremonies to ways to support us, are waiting in the show notes.
We'd love to hear your magic moment of the week. Share it in a review, tag us on socials, or bring it to our Patreon clubhouse at demystifymagic.com.
And remember, you are the magic.
Okay, love you.
Bye.